Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Horrifying monsters, dangerous gods and heroes, and incredible underrepresented women. From the truth about Medusa, she never actually hurt anyone, to the horrors of Theseus, he was basically a serial predator. I am Liv Albert, and Let's Talk About Myths, Baby is the Greek and Roman mythology podcast here with all the dirty details and then some. Listen to Let's Talk About Myths, Baby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. What the heck is up, podcast humans? Thank you for downloading this particular episode or streaming it or however it is you're consuming it. Maybe it's on YouTube. Maybe it's like, you're putting it on your original iPod. No, I'm just kidding. But that's how you used to listen to podcasts like some 10 odd years ago. Anyways, that is making me feel old. But what doesn't make me feel old is connecting with people who are involved in independent music, whether it's playing in a band, whether it's putting on shows, putting out records, whatever it is. As long as we're dedicated to this whole DIY endeavor that all of us just care a lot about. I mean, I'm old and I care about it. And I talk to people who are much younger than me that care about it. And I talk to people who are older than me that care about it. So that goes to show that this thing connects on a deep, deep level, whether it's punk, hardcore, metal, whatever it is, as long as it's under that independent umbrella. But let's talk about our guest this week. His name is Madison Woodward. He plays in a band called Object of Affection. He also plays in Fury, which is a great band. Both bands are great. And he also played back in the day in a band called Creatures. That's where I first tripped across him. He also is a partner over at Sound and Fury, the beautiful hardcore festival that exists here in Los Angeles. I put it on for a couple of years with my friend Joey, and it's been, I guess I would say resurrected, even though it's happened for many years now, but in the late, 10s, I guess, it came back. But Madison is a partner over there, and then he also works at the really, really cool event space / movie theater / clothing brand called Brain Den Studios. Dead, not den, dead. Anyways, Madison, as you can tell, is involved with a lot. That's why this discussion was very interesting for me. Not only because I enjoy his music, but I enjoy what he does and the work that he puts out there. So let's talk about how you can support the show for absolutely $0. First of all, you can go to the Apple Podcast page, leave a rating and review. Those things help out drastically. It gets the whole algorithm working in our favor. And then you can also, if you listen to it on Spotify, you can just leave a star rating. That would be very helpful and take you less than a minute and a half. I know tens of thousands of you listen to this on a weekly basis, and maybe you haven't done that. So I'm pointing the finger at you. Just take 30 seconds and do that. It would help out. You can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. And I'm excited this week because I actually get to yell into a microphone. I'm kind of trying to start a new band. So we'll see. I mean, it's a bunch of old heads, and I'm excited about collaborating with people who I've never played in a band with. And we're just putting some songs together, and I get to yell into a microphone in a recording capacity. And we'll see if the songs come out. If they don't, then you won't hear about this again. But I'm excited about that. And what I'm also excited about is Outbreak Festival. If you are not familiar, first of all, just Google Outbreak Fest and you will be able to find out all of the cool information. But I will be going over there in late June to attend that festival and do some live podcasts because I am going to sort of unofficially work with them to, actually, no, we can just say official, to launch a podcast of theirs. More details on that to come, but I will be doing live podcasts at that event. And if you have not looked at the lineup, I mean, where else are you going to see Converge and Bane running against Earl Sweatshirt and Denzel Curry? Very few festivals will do that, but Outbreak is one of them. Before we dive into the discussion with Madison, I have to tell you about my favorite coffee, bar none, in the entire planet, and that is Bodhi Leaf Coffee. They're an importer and roaster based here in Orange County, California. They have these really cool, cafes, but then they also have the, place where they get all their beans and do all their roasting and stuff like that. I don't care if you are a hardcore coffee nerd or a person that's just like, you know what? I want some good coffee in the morning. I don't want to think about it. And that is where Bodhi Leaf can come into play. But I want to give you a discount, 15% off a roasted coffee subscription by using the code 100WordsPod. What's cool about a subscription, it's free shipping. You can cancel it at any time. If you get, too many beans stacked up, you're not grinding enough. But trust me in saying this is the best coffee I've ever tasted. And I like it so much that they decided to do a custom blend for this podcast. And you will be able to find it in the show notes and a very easy link that you can click on in the description of this particular podcast. So go there, buy some beans, get a subscription, and you will just be appropriately caffeinated, because I know I drink probably 6 to 8 cups a day. I know maybe that's a little excessive, but I love coffee. And that is why Bodhi Leaf came on board and we did the damn thing. So very excited about that. Go to bodhileafcoffee.com, use the promo code 100WordsPod, and you'll be able to get 15% off a subscription. And then while you're at it, why don't you just toss in a 100 words blend? It's really good. I'm not going to lie. I did a whole tasting thing about it. And anyways, I love Bodhi Leaf and I love their continued support of the show. So it is my absolute pleasure to tell you to do that. So go to bodhileafcoffee.com and let's talk to Madison now. Okay, here we go.
I'm sure this is like many people in your life where you try to pinpoint, you're like, okay, when did we actually meet? And I was trying to reflect. I was like, okay, I know at one point, I'm fairly certain we ran across each other at program, and I was aware of your work. I was like, oh yeah, this is the dude, he puts on shows. That's cool. And I admired from afar. I admired your, your hustle. You definitely were always out there just being like, oh yeah, whether it's obviously playing in a band, I know that you played in Creatures, and you just were out there doing things, whether or not anybody cared, you were doing it, which I personally thought was sick. When did you, I guess, was that mode that you were in of just always kind of, putting stuff together with friends and bands and shows and all that sort of stuff? Was that drive always kind of you? Were you a young child, selling lemonade at the corner of the street, or that sort of hustle, or where did that come from, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just kind of came from my folks, they were kind of just hustling, and I don't know, they had all really different interests and trying to keep things going. And I guess yeah, I remember I mean, ultimately I remember being 14 or something, and my mom just basically telling my sister you have to get him a job. And she was just he's 14, he can't even legally work yet. And she was like, no, but let's get him a job, let's get him something. And so my sister got me one of those sign waving jobs, where you're on the side of the street. Yeah. So I did that in Anaheim for probably maybe 6 months, and then once I turned 15 or something, I was able to get this weird reception job that I worked at for 4 years, actually. I worked there until I was almost 20, which was crazy.
Well, I first of all, that's one of the sickest jobs I've ever heard of, is your first entry point job of being a sign twirler. That's just, I mean, I know you see most teenagers doing it or whatever, but just you at 14 years old being here's the insurance sign I'm flipping today. Here we go.
Yeah, I was just going for it. I never got really better at it. When you see people who are obviously really talented at it, or like they just have like a flair for it. I was just kind of more like, I'm gonna just kind of like run it back and forth until my arms give out, you know. But nonetheless, yeah, I was like happy for whatever it was, like the like $10 under the table an hour or whatever it was. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. And I think that especially when you enter the job market, I know that sounds so professional, but like when you start to get just that simple thing of like, oh, I put in a few hours here and I get this in return, and like this gives me money that I can like choose what to do with it. It's like it unlocks something in your brain, even though you know that a job makes you money, but it's like when you actually get that, it's so exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and by that time, like I was like, you know, getting really into music, and as a hobby, music is so expensive. It's kind of crazy how quick things add up. So
Right.
yeah, just anything that I could get my hands on to go to the Guitar Center in Brea, I was more than happy to.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, we'll pick apart Guitar Center in Brea because that's definitely a legendary spot for all of the Orange County.
Yeah, Orange County music for sure.
Well, it's either that or the Guitar Center in Fountain Valley. It's like that's it.
Yeah.
Well, so I know, like you were mentioning, you were, I presume, born and raised in the OC, or did you move there from somewhere else?
No, yeah, actually born in Fountain Valley.
Oh, okay, got it. And then, but you spent time more inland, I guess, as it were.
Yeah, I was North County, born and raised, proud of it. And I don't know, like, I mean, are you from South County?
I've technically been in Newport Beach when I moved. Like I moved from Vegas out here when I was like 7.
Okay.
So yeah, but Orange County, like definitely Newport Beach area.
Yeah, I just feel like there is like a distinct difference between North and South County, and I think
Agreed.
we get lumped together. But when you grow up and you live there, it's night and day, really. So, yeah.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I don't think I really even understood the concept of South County until I started to go to shows and I started hearing about kids from South County, and I was like, what does that even mean? And it was like, obviously San Clemente, Data Point, and all that stuff. And, and then you started to see the differences, whether it was just like the way that they acted at shows, and then once you started to observe other people, it was like, oh yeah, there is a difference. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's mostly at shows, like in etiquette, but that's like where it really was like a big distinction to me. But Anyway, yeah, sorry. Born in Fountain Valley. I lived in North County essentially my entire life until college, when I went up to San Francisco.
Got it. Okay. And talk to me about your family life, like, mom and dad in the house. Like you mentioned, you had a sister. What did that breakdown look like?
Yeah, mom and dad, 2 sisters and a brother. My mom had me when she was 46 years old. And by that time, like, it was like, she didn't think she was going to have any more kids. So everybody else was like in high school, and my brother like graduated, I think. So it was an interesting dynamic where, I was a child and all my siblings were 20 years old.
Right. I mean, you were definitely the gift, as they sometimes say, where it's just like, oh, we weren't expecting Madison, but he's here now. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they had to kind of go along with that. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was great though. My mom always said like, she kind of like thought that she had like figured everything out with parenting. And then, I was into a lot, like my interests are completely the opposite of my siblings. And so she was like, yeah, I got to like experience like a whole different, life essentially with me. So it was
sure. And I'm sure in some respects too, it felt like you were an only child, even though you had siblings, but you were the only one in the house for, I presume, many of those years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once like everybody moved out, it was just essentially just me and my folks. And then, my siblings started their own families, and they all have their their own kind of, yeah, everyone has a family and everyone has like a house and like everyone's kind of doing their thing. And then I'm just kind of still, I don't know, just kicking around.
Yeah, you're just doing your thing, which we'll get into later. So based around that kind of dynamic of what you're talking about, what kind of kid did you find yourself being as you were growing up in regards to, elementary school and a little bit of junior high, like, sports? Like, did you care about school? What did you find yourself doing?
I think I was like a brat, to be honest. Like I used to like try to fight my brother all the time, but like I said, like he was like a actual like Iron Man, and like would just like have to like literally like just beat me down because I just like would keep trying to fight him. And I guess I was just always really into that, like kind of like the underdog. Like that's how I kind of always felt like. And so I'm trying to think like. Yeah, and then like in school, I didn't really care too much, and I don't know. I don't actually know what happened. It all clicked like when I got to high school or something. I was like, oh, I should like try and like care about this stuff and like kind of
put some effort into it.
Yeah, put some effort into it, and then actually since then, that's like I got really into school, like in high school and especially in college.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's cool that you had. That idea dawns upon people at different times. Like sometimes you get it, in elementary school, and sometimes people get it when they like take a class in college that they all of a sudden like. But that's cool that you knew that the most serious years that you should take it were in high school and then beyond. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's cool, but that's, it was my experience for sure.
I'd say it's cool because, I mean, regardless, like, especially too, where it's like, and I'm sure you experienced this with some of your friends where when you start going to shows and playing in bands and all that sort of stuff, like I always had friends, and like I said, I'm sure you had a few friends that were always in trouble because they weren't getting good grades or like they couldn't go to a show because they were, grounded. And you're just like, I was always like, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, just like put in a little effort because then you can go to this, sick, disembodied show on the weekend or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. We always did like, I always kind of did like sweet and sour type of, or like salt and pepper. Like I would like, like try really hard and then also like kind of like do something to like fuck off or like, right. I remember in a bunch of us went to like Fullerton College, the community college over there. Mm-hmm. And what's the game where like you kind of hit a ball like in the grass and like, it's like all the balls are different colors and you have these like weird like mallets.
Oh, it's like either croquet or
I think it was croquet.
Okay, yeah.
We used to like bring croquet and like play like in the that sounds like we're like proper. Like we were kind of doing it just more of like to fuck off. Like it was a community college. And so like we used to like bring that into the quad and play or like play like frisbee, like frisbee football. And dude, like the whole school would be playing. Like it was crazy. Like we would get, like literally like 100 people like circled around and we just all be playing. And it was really, really fun.
That sounds amazing. I just like that idea because I mean, community colleges are clearly not meant to be like hangout spots. Like maybe you're killing time between classes, but just the idea that you guys would be showing up and creating this whole like random communal game where people are probably, spending more time than they should have just like hanging out at a campus that isn't really designed for that.
I can't tell you how many people came up and told me that was the first time they ever ditched class was to play frisbee football.
That's so
cool. Like literally like dozens of people told me that, which is cool. That's like that whole squad that like of kind of like that whatever it would be, I guess like mid 2000s like bands from Orange County. Like we all went to Fullerton College together. And so we would just go to school and then go to shows at night or go on the weekends.
Right. It's really cool when stuff like that pops up around a school that like, cause I mean, I remember Biola where it's like, they had a whole, it was like some of the dudes from Thrice went there and then like, the band that ended up turning into like local natives, but it's like, you see just these little glimmers of like, oh yeah, these like 2 or 3 kids. And then all of a sudden more come in there. And then that's like your crew you're rolling with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so when did you actually get introduced to, like independent music and more along the lines of, what we care about here?
Yeah. It just you kind of get like a taste and you just kind of keep following, like the road. And so I grew up in the time, I always say it's funny. Like, it's like, I grew up when like, Korn and like System of a Down, like they were essentially like Drake or Rihanna. Like they were the biggest acts in the world, and they were on TV constantly. And so I was a huge fan. And then through that, like I would like punish my brothers and sisters or my dad, like to take us to like Ozfest 99 and Ozfest 2000, or actually, I'm sorry, Ozfest 2000, Ozfest 2001. Okay. And then I remember, what would it be, like 2000? We saw Hatebreed play, and it was before Perseverance. And it was just like, I hadn't heard anything like it. It was insane. I remember getting the CD, and it was just like, also super weird. Like it was like a digipack. Like it looked insane. It was like a blue digipack. And I just became like upset. Like actually me and all my friends became obsessed with it. And then, you just kind of like keep following it from there. Like go to a Hatebreed show, get exposed to, other hardcore bands, read the thank you list. And then you just kind of keep going and going and going. It is crazy that one thing, like that exposure, like kind of like really changed everything for me.
Absolutely. Everybody always needs that gateway band or experience to put you down the never ending well of music and punk and hardcore, where it's just like, looks like there's no bottom. You just keep going forever. Yeah. And it wasn't just like it wasn't just hardcore. I know that your question wasn't like, when did you get into hardcore? It was like, I was obsessed with music, like anything that I could get my hands on. Like I knew every new metal band. I knew every, like I went to go see Slayer that like same year, like 2000. So I got like really into thrash, and I just kind of like was absorbing everything I can get my hands on. Right. It was like because plus at that age too, you're just like, you don't have a concept. I didn't have a filter. I didn't have a filter in any way. I just wanted more and more and more. Right. It was music, and it was good, and you liked it, and that's all you cared about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then as you started to, go through high school and like, go to shows and everything like that, was Creatures essentially your first band, or did you play in something before that? We like me and a couple of the guys in Creatures, or ended up being in Creatures. We all like kind of grew up in like the same town together, and so we like tried to put stuff together. Nothing of like, I don't even know if we had names, but like we would try to like write songs and keep playing out. And then and then we did a band with some other friends from around the way called What Life Is was the name of it. And then through that we met some of the Creatures guys, and then I joined, or I'm sorry, at the time that band was called Finish Him, which was a Mortal Kombat reference. Of course. Yeah. And then I joined that band, and then became Creatures. And then both of those bands essentially like just imploded into each other. And so, kind of like everyone who kept like playing music, like after high school, like they would just, that became like that band, like the kind of like at its core. Right. It was like, you guys, there was just different iterations of it where it's like, okay, instead of trying to rip off, Integrity, we're going to rip off this other band or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I just mentioned that Slayer show that was like in 2000 or 2001. Mm-hmm. And me and my buddy Kyle, and I think Keith went to it, and we, that was like still to this day one of the best shows I've ever seen. And it's interesting to think that like that is honestly probably like one of the big influences as to like what Creatures kind of became and like the sound of it. Mm-hmm. It's just like us trying to rip off Slayer, but we weren't good enough, like, so it just kind of ended up sounding the way it did. Totally. It's like, welcome to 99% of bands that exist in hardcore. Yeah. Essentially, yeah. That's amazing.
You know what I bet you didn't think you needed in your life? How about a Cannibal Corpse skate deck? Or maybe like a Husker Du t-shirt? Or how about a Rolling Stones track jacket or jean jacket, all of these items you can find at rockabilia.com. I love Rockabilia. And what they do is they ship out merch to you. And what I do is give you a promo code to get a discount on that. 10% off your entire order by using the promo code 100 words or less. Go to rockabilia.com, poke around the site. You'll be able to find so many cool things that you can buy for yourself, your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, probably even your grandparents, or maybe even, I don't know, your teacher. I don't know. I'm just thinking of random people that, might like a gift from you. It ships to you directly from the Midwest here in the United States of America. It's all officially licensed stuff. That means the bands get paid. Everybody wins in this scenario, including you as the consumer, because you can get 10% off by using the promo code 100 words or less at rockabilia.com. Browse to your heart's content and buy some merch so everybody can, make money, and then you look cool. Like I said, a win-win scenario for everybody. Thank you for your continued support, Rockabilia.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Trust me in saying that therapy is an incredible tool for as you are traveling through life, because who you are as a person, 5 or 10 years ago is maybe a completely different version of yourself, because we run into challenges, whether it's work, whether it's life stuff, relationships, all of those things you can work through with a therapist. And that is why I love BetterHelp and what they do. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/Ray. Dip in, give therapy a try, and become a better person.
As you started to get into this, how did your parents react? Like, as you started to be really immersed in playing in bands and going to shows and stuff like that, were they concerned? Did they, I'm sure they cared, but were they permissive enough to let you do your thing?
Yeah, thankfully, my folks were honestly really supportive. Kind of like I said, they were just at that point, they're in their 60s, and so they were just kind of oh, okay, have fun, it's all good, you'll figure it out. And my mom, I remember really liking it because I became straight edge, and so she was like, I know you're not doing anything bad, so yeah, go ahead, whatever, do your thing. They were cool. My first one of my first jobs after the sign waving thing, also, when I was a senior in high school, I started working at this venue in Fullerton. It was kind of short lived, but it was called the Alley.
Oh, please. I didn't play a stupid amount of shows at the Alley. Oh my gosh.
I was going to say, I definitely saw a few Mikoto shows at the Alley.
And I'm sure you didn't know this at the time, but that was a legendary, what I would like to call a, pay to play scenario, where it was we Mikoto got paid, honestly, way too much money to play a local show. And then the local bands would obviously pay to play with Mikoto because we had some recognition.
Yeah.
I did it. I think we did it, once or twice like that. And then we quickly realized, wait a minute, this, all we're doing is fleecing these young bands. This is terrible. And so, yeah, but anyways, the Alley was
ended up being pretty short lived.
Totally.
I don't know if it was really I don't know if the people running it were really,
Yeah. Well, that's amazing it's amazing you worked there though. That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I worked in the box office and stuff. And that was also my first exposure to, how a show runs and everything, and all the details behind that. So
right.
Yeah, it was really cool. I forgot why I had brought that up, to be honest.
No, it's completely fine. That's why I'm here as a quote unquote host, and I use air quotes around that. But just the idea that you started to.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. So, right, my folks. Yeah. So when I started working at the venue, they just kind of thought that was a part of the whole thing. They were just oh yeah, he's working at this venue and he's playing shows. That's just my hobby and interest, I guess, at the time. So thankfully they were very supportive.
Right. And it's cool too that your parents understood the concept, I'm sure, after you explained it to them of, straight edge, and you're like, yeah, I may be out, but I'm not like, up to terrible things. I'm up to maybe general mischief, but not to the point where I'm going to like irrevocably damage the rest of my life because I'm making some horrible decisions.
Yeah, no, they were totally fine with that. They were actually really frustrated when I was vegan for like 5 years around that time, and man, they hated that.
Yeah, they did not like that one. Oh man,
they did not like that. Anytime we went out to eat, they're just like, Jesus Christ, can you just order something? Like, can you just get something normal?
Totally. Can you not like punish the waiter or server?
Exactly. Dude, you had to that's probably how I got so good at punishing, was just being vegan, talking to freaking waiters.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I'm sure, it's interesting now because you can just throw a rock and there's a vegan restaurant. But like at the time I would have to drive to Irvine in order to like eat at a vegan restaurant.
Of course. Wheel of life, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Wheel of life, vegan power.
Yes, exactly. Long live Victor. I know.
R.I.P. Victor. But yeah, it would take me like 35, 40 minutes just to go eat there. So yeah, it is interesting that I stopped being like, I feel like I stopped being vegan at the time when it was on the cusp of becoming just incredibly accessible.
Right. You got out when it got easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it did teach me how to cook, though. I always say that like I had to learn how to cook in order to eat. So that's how I found out I loved cooking.
It's awesome. It has all of these unintended consequences that blossom from that. That's cool. So when did you start? I imagine like you said, the alley was a place where you started to see a lot of shows and start to see kind of maybe the generic scene, as it were, kind of blossoming. I presume you were going to a lot of like Chain Reaction and stuff like that as well.
I was going to Chain Reaction, like twice a week
for just anything and everything. Yeah,
crazy, man. Just obsessed.
Right. And did you want to play in bands like immediately, or was that something you had to kind of warm up to?
That's an interesting question. I think I wanted to play in bands. I just didn't think I was like confident enough to do it. And then once we started going to like Chain a lot, like I remember freshman year, I think we went and saw like Phobia and Bleeding Through. And then I was like, oh, like maybe I could play this, maybe I could play this place, like at the time I was like going to these, like huge, like absolute, like crazy metal shows. And then I was like, oh, like this place is like just as cool. And like, maybe I could play here one day, that'd be cool. And then, and so that like kind of gave me the confidence. But I will tell you that definitely the first show I played there was a pay to play for sure. Like 100%.
Right. Well, I think everybody, I mean, in my opinion, you needed to at least experience it once to kind of understand the mechanics of how it works. And then just the, awful nature of like you going around to your friends and then you selling 10 tickets and then having to go to your parents to buy the other 20 or whatever. Like it's just,
we figured it out really quick. Actually, we did a really good job. Not to be like braggadocious of something so rough, but like, we sold like 100 tickets.
Dude,
that's cool.
You're great. Yeah.
And then the guy gave us $100 and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, like, I kind of like instantly was like, damn, that's crazy that we just gave this guy $1,000 and like over $1,000. And then he gave us like $100 back. Right. And I was like, okay, like, I think something's wrong here. Yeah. Like, so that was like the kind of, like that one and done situation. And then obviously like, working at the alley, we didn't have to like do that there, thankfully. So
yeah. I do love that when you get your dumb kid brain can do the really simple economic math of like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. We sold 100 tickets at this price and we're getting like 1/10 of that at the most. Like that doesn't make sense. Or like, you play a sold out show and you're like, we got $75. Like, I understand we weren't the main draw here, but why is this working out this way?
Yeah, I feel like that. I don't know. That used to happen a lot, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a little. I know it's a little more formalized now, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of that wild west nature of taking advantage over young teenagers just trying to play a show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
And so when you went to college, like you mentioned, what was kind of the life path that was unfolding, as it were? Like, were you expected to take up any sort of profession from the family, or were you just kind of pursuing something in relation to music?
It was like, honestly, like, it was really important for my dad that I go to college, because he never went. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of had this idea that, like, if I went to college, like, things would be different for me. And then, like, I don't really know if I excelled in a lot of things. So I ended up just going to film school in San Francisco. And I mean, I got my degree. And then, I like kind of worked. I worked on The Voice for a season.
Oh, okay. So, like, yeah, were you doing like PA work or what?
Yeah, just like I was like a producer's assistant.
Sure.
And yeah, I just like hated it. Like, it was like those people were just awful. Like, just awful. Like, I mean, they weren't even really that awful to me, to be honest. It was just like more of like watching and just feeling like really uncomfortable. And so I was just like, oh man, like, I don't think this is my shit. Like, I should just do music, which is like what I wanted to do all along. But, I want to make my dad proud. So yeah, anyway, like, yeah, I got the degree, and, I think that, like, once I did that, they were kind of more like, okay, like, you did it. Why don't you go, like, do your thing, like, play music for a while. Like, they thought it would probably be like a year or something like that, like, where like I would like tour and play music for like a year or two, but it ended up being a lot longer than that. So,
right.
But it's all good.
Right. Well, I like the idea that they were just like, Madison, you got to get that piece of paper that tells you you're a smart human, and then once you have that, we don't care. Like, do whatever you need to.
Well, they're from that generation, you know what I mean? Like I said,
Absolutely.
like at that point, they're in their late 60s, and so they thought that was kind of like the end all be all. And I think that we've all wised up to realize that, like, I you really don't need that degree. In fact, it really doesn't change too much. So but nonetheless, like, they were very Orange County parents in that way, where like, get your degree and you'll get a good job, quote unquote.
Right. You'll have whether it's that or whether it's like you'll always have something to fall back on, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
Yeah.
I've never had to, like, any job I've had since then, like, no one's ever asked me about my degree.
No, yeah, it's like a line item in a resume you turn in, and no one actually is like, I mean, unless you go to some prestigious university, if it's like, oh, you went to Duke, I see, and then it's like a 4-second mention, and then you're on to like, okay, so tell me about what you did. It's like, yeah,
right, yeah.
And so as you started to, because I'm going to label Creatures as kind of the first band where you started to like tour and, put out records and do all. Yeah. I'm going to guess like your experience with touring has evolved over time. Like, did you, like it at the get-go and kind of, maybe enjoy it less in regards to just some of the grind that obviously happens on the road? Or what's your experience with tour?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was like younger, we would do these tours and we would like make no money, and it would be super brutal, and we would like sleep in the van, and it was just like straight gnarly, and I had the best time. Like, I loved them, like, I couldn't believe them. And just because, you were just kind of like traveling around, going to all these new places with like all your best friends. And so it was really, really incredible. And then, yeah, like, obviously, like, doing that, like, I mean, dude, there was nights straight up, I remember, like, sleeping in a parking lot, like, not in the van, like, actually, like, sleeping on the fucking asphalt.
Pavement.
Like,
Yeah.
in my sleeping bag, and just, that just kind of wears you down after a while. Especially like the way that, like, how hard we were going. And that was like, I don't know why, like we were just into it. Like, I remember, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me mentioning this, but Steven, the singer of Creatures, like, we would tour and he would come back and he was homeless. Like, it was crazy.
Right.
Like, like he would just be crashing on like people's couches until he could kind of like figure it out and then like get a room. And we were just going so hard. And it was really fun. And like, just like the little wins, you just felt like, there was like momentum building. And so I learned a lot from touring and being in that band. And I think like refining it, to what eventually like some of my other bands when my other bands started touring.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I remember the work that you guys were putting in on the road, and, signing with Eulogy and just like having all of these experiences. And it was cool because you guys, were just doing like what every band did, where it was like, oh yeah, this is what we do and tour, but there was no consideration set of like, what does it mean to grind yourself into a bloody pulp? Like, is this good for you as a person? Like, you just never asked that question,
Yeah, like mentally, or just like, just like physical health. Like, it was crazy.
Right. And then how much longer after, in regards to Creatures disbanding, did Fury pick up? Because you guys started to play around like 2013, 2014, correct, or no?
Yeah, 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember like, Creatures kind of ended, and then I'm trying to think, like, that was like when I think I still lived in San Francisco.
Okay.
And then I moved back from San Francisco, and I like just started like kind of like jamming with friends and stuff like that, and trying to like figure out what, the next thing, like what if I wanted to keep playing, to be honest, like if I wanted to like even like start another band again.
Right.
And yeah, we started this band, like all of us, and it was called Pocket Knife.
That okay. I didn't know you played in that. I just remember the name. I never saw you guys or anything, but
yeah, it was cool. We kind of hit it like for maybe like, I don't know, like a year. And we came out with like a 7-inch, and like we did like some tours, and they were okay. But we were kind of like, putting a lot of time into it, and like we loved it. And then the drummer of that band was Jeremy, and I remember, like, I don't even remember what show we played, some show, and like Jeremy was like moshing. I was like, damn, Jeremy looks sick. Like, Jeremy should sing for a band. Like, I was like, like, damn, like that fool looks sick as hell.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, and then so when I got home, I like kind of like threw together some songs. And then I was like, yo, Jeremy, I want you to like sing on these. And he's like, I've never just sang before. And I was like, it's all good. Like, it's not anything serious. And that's actually when we met, like around that time is when I met Alex, who ended up drumming for Fury. And and like, I don't know, it's just kind of like perfect storm. Like, we just kind of like all met around that same time, like within a year, and like recorded this demo. And then Alex went to Europe to like for like a skate trip or something. Like, he like skated through Europe for like 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Which was also kind of nice because it gave me a lot of time to like, I recorded the demo in my bedroom. And so it just like gave me like extra time to just try to like get it as good as I can get it to sound with like what I had. And then when he got back, we were like, okay, we like put out this tape, and like we couldn't even play locally at the time because, like I said, like Chain Reaction was just, I don't know, it was just like too expensive to try to throw a show. And I felt like locally, like the Orange County scene was kind of like on the downswing. And so our first show was actually in Bakersfield, California.
Oh, you played did you play Jerry's Pizza, or you?
No, we played Munoz Gym.
Oh yeah. Beautiful spot. Yeah.
Historic.
Exactly. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that idea, because it did feel at a certain time especially in this, Orange County area, it was like there was always a place to play, but then it got to a point where it did feel, impenetrable, where it's like, oh dude, chain, like you have to know somebody there, like you really have to be on the in order to play a show there, and you can't just like be an outside promoter unless you're a pay to play thing. And so I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah.
And then thankfully, actually, like right around that same time, my buddy Chris played an acoustic show at Program, and so that was like the first time I went to Program, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I met Chris and Ephraim, and I kind of like asked them if I could, throw a show there, which ended up being Fury's second show, but it was the first Suburban Fight show, which is the name I did my shows under. Yeah, or I still do actually. Yeah. And then Soul Search headlined, and it was crazy. It was like so many people showed up, and we didn't, at that time, I feel like we got into a groove on how, shows at Program go, but this was like, kind of like, to steal your phrase, like the Wild Wild West. Like it was chaotic and insane, but it was incredible. It was really fun.
Right. And I love it because it's so cool to watch something, accidentally happen, like Program, where it's like you have this space, you have these willing participants, and everybody's learning as they're going. But then now it's like, talking in 2023, the idea that a lot of bands of a certain, genre would rather play Program above any other spot in Orange County, which is like, it's crazy to say that, when you look back 10 years, you're just like, oh yeah, every band reflected on Chain Reaction as being like the coup de grace of playing. And now it's like, oh yeah, if you play a Program, like it's much easier, probably be a better show than Chain or whatever. It's like no shot against Chain, but that's just the way things ebb and flow.
Yeah, I feel special. Yeah. I mean, geez, even like a couple of weeks ago, didn't like Newfound Glory played there? Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like that's insane. Like that's crazy that, and hats off to like Chris and Ephraim for, sticking out and making it happen.
Totally. But like being able to work with the amount of people to, build the community up that it is, it's really cool. And, I will gas you up and say you had a part of that. And it's great to see that. Of course. The interesting thing that I've, basically all of the endeavors that you have, gone on to do, whether it's, Suburban Fight, obviously all the wrestling stuff, like clearly there's a lot of business implications. Like there's, I know that you're not viewing it from this perspective, but the idea that like, yes, there's commerce that has to happen, like we got to pay the bands, we got to, pay the space and all that sort of stuff. I presume that's kind of just like a, necessary evil for you, or is it like, do you enjoy the business aspect of it to like make it work and obviously make it, sustainable for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, there's like two sides to it. Like I want to make sure that like, I mean, I always go into everything I'm doing, like if I was, the person performing, or if I was the person who ran the space, like what would I, what's the experience I would like? And then like, what would I like to see at the end of the night? If, let's say it's like a show sells out or something like that. Right. And so, I always try to take care of everyone. I mean, that's essentially, the same ethos that Sound and Fury has, where, we kind of reinvested into, like an audience experience as opposed to, like our takeaway, because we were like, we want everyone to have the best weekend, and we can and if they have the best weekend, I think it's going to just keep growing. And so that's like the idea of it. And that's what I try to do with Suburban Fight, with all the Brain Dead events I do, all the wrestling stuff. I think if you do it right, people will keep coming back.
Our friends at evilgreed.net want me to remind you to, first of all, look at their website. It's incredible. They are a web store solution provider for bands and record labels, but you as the consumer, you can benefit by going to the website and using the promo code 100words. That gets you 10% off your entire order. They ship out merch. They ship out vinyl. They ship out everything to you. They are based in Berlin, Germany, so you will be seeing international shipping. But guess what? The secret's out. Shipping is not that expensive from over there, and it gets to you in like a week to a week and a half. I know because I've ordered from them before. What makes them even more special in my mind is the fact that they work with a select amount of bands and record labels. Like they honestly act like a record label. If you are into anything sort of like heavy and artistic, you will be into what Evil Greed has going on. Like, let me just list some of their new merch items that they have from bands. You like Stray from the Path? Cool. They got a bunch of cool new merch. You like Gel? They got a new record coming out in June. I love them. How about Portrayal of Guilt? Also another band I love. That just gives you a little smattering. And then they work with labels like Sargent House, Triple B Records. The list goes on, but you can go to evilgreed.net and use the promo code 100 words, 10% off your entire order, and it ships to you lickety split. I was about to say lickety fast, but that's not even a saying. So anyways, evilgreed.net, 100 words, the promo code. Go enjoy.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and the idea that it's like, and this will dovetail nicely into the, very short list of people who have, directly put on the Sound and Fury Festival. I always remember when Joey and I did it for those, 3 years, when you actually look at the amount of time invested versus the, financial reward that you get at the end of it, where it's like, oh my gosh, like I could have obviously just worked a part-time job for 3 months. And it's like, but it's funny because it doesn't, so many people don't view it that way.
Like right now, it's like I'm working, and on my lunch breaks, I'm booking Sound and Fury. And then after work, I'm booking Sound and Fury.
Right.
It's crazy.
Totally. No, and I think it's like being in the position that you're in, where you are, like you said, reinvesting in the experience and being like, okay, like, yes, we obviously all need to be compensated for the work that we put into it. But at the same time, like, we are not just doing this for, the payday for Live Nation to swoop in and buy out this festival or whatever. It's like, because the moment that happens, it obviously becomes not special, not your own anymore.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we wouldn't do it, or like I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it, like to be quite honest, like for any of this stuff, like, I could just, I mean, during the pandemic, I like worked at this like tech company, and I just sat in front of a computer all day, and I like hated it. But yeah, I was thankful for it, because what else was I going to do? But I guess what I'm saying is like, I could just do that if I wanted to. Or if I needed to, but yep. I feel a need to do these things, and I get the creative reward from it is, miles above anything else that I've experienced, at least in a workplace.
Yeah. Oh, I totally, I empathize with what you're saying. Something on the Sound and Fury tip as well, where, once you stepped into it with, your partners, Martine and Riley, what was, I guess, because I know I can speak from my own experience of like stepping into something and planning something, and then these things that you never considered were like, oh, wow, like I guess we have to do this, or you're surprised by. What were you most surprised by as you stepped into, planning a festival of that magnitude?
Oh, do you mean maybe like within the last year, like when it kind of went outdoors?
Or just like when you first stepped in, like, when you first started to help them out in, booking bands or whatever capacity you started with. So what was surprising as you started to get into it?
I think just like, I mean, like kind of like touching on it again, just like how long it takes to plan these things out, like, and like every single detail is like talked about and thought about and talked about again, like it's like nothing gets checked off without everyone's approval. I think that like, I mean, 2016 for me, that was like the first year I worked on the festival, and it wasn't like I had only maybe booked a third of the bands playing, and at the time that felt like a lot. Whereas like now, for the most part, obviously like me and Riley and my team talk everything over, but I'm handling pretty much the majority of the booking.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think, I guess just like how monotonous it can be, but I guess, there's something in me that loves it. We love talking about every scenario, like talking it out and, like trying to make it better really. And like doing it and then, being proud and happy with it, but like trying to figure out like, okay, next year, like what can we do to like improve this, or like how can we make this better?
Yeah, sure. Makes sense. And excuse me.
What about you? Sorry, to pull it back. What about you when you took it over?
No, I appreciate the question, because I think it's the thing that surprised me the most was like the amount of like just random details, whether it was like like what you were talking about, where 1 year you don't consider something, and then it's like, I remember the first year we did it, we didn't have an on-site EMT. So like the first year it was like, people, whatever, a kid sprains his ankle in the pit and it's not a serious injury, but someone needs to tend to it. So then it's like they call the ambulance. And I remember like the recap after the festival with like the, Earl Warren Showgrounds people, is that they were like, yeah, so the ambulance came out like 100 times. So we need to have an EMT. And myself and Joey were like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. That's a good idea. It's just because when we're children, like we don't know what we're doing.
No, yeah, for sure.
So that was surprising.
But you learn, I guess that works. Like you learned like for the next year, you're like, okay, we're going to get EMT.
Absolutely. It's those minor things. And then also, I'm sure this was something I was going to ask you as well. What is the, I guess, most fun or satisfying thing that you kind of get out of it? Whether it's, actually coming up with the lineup, or like where the band's playing the day, like what is, for you personally, what do you enjoy the most?
Yeah, I think that's like, it's kind of like, that's interesting. Yeah. Kind of like booking it is one thing. Like I enjoy it and like kind of like figuring out. And then once you get to that point where you're like, okay, how's the day? Like, it's not even like what bands should play where. It's more of like, let's just you're curating like this vibe for the day, like how it's going to run, like how they're going to, like how an audience member is going to experience it from start to finish. And then seeing that in real time, the day of the festival, and watching people, just for the most part, like really, really enjoying themselves, and like these bands having, some of the best sets they've ever played as a band. It's just really rewarding. It's really cool. Cause I felt that, when Fury played Sound and Fury, that's like what we look forward to. And I feel like a lot of bands do, because that you're going to have like an incredible show, and you kind of know that like the vibe is going to be there. And ultimately, they know that they're going to be taken care of, because us three are, really pushing to make sure that all the bands are enjoying themselves and being taken care of.
Right. The vibes are high. That's what essentially you're trying to do. You're a vibe curator.
I didn't want to go too like OC on you, but the vibes are right for sure. Yeah.
No, for sure. Well, I mean, I don't even know if I would apply it to Orange County. I mean, that's like a, hashtag influencer lifestyle. So if you just put vibe curator in your Instagram profile, I think you're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll add that after this. For sure.
Yeah. You're like, I'll get right on that, Ray. No problem. So this may be a really big question, but how do you, because you are a person like we've talked about, like is involved in a lot of things, whether it's playing in bands and obviously all the, the vibe curation you do, when do you know how to stop something, like it not even from a successful perspective, or it's like, oh, this isn't making any money more, so I need to move on. But just like, when do you know that, you're maybe doing too much and you need to pull back? Like, do you have that governor in your head that kind of tells you to chill out for a moment?
I'm trying to get better at it.
Okay.
Yeah, like lately I've been trying to like get better at that. Kind of like saying no to things. it's hard sometimes. But yeah, I think that ultimately with a lot of things I do, like, I like pushing things, but it's also dependent on, people, especially with like events, like, if people aren't coming to the events, then I'm probably not going to keep doing the events, because like who's that for by myself, and then if it's for me, I can just go to something similar and probably enjoy myself a lot more and not be as like stressed. And so, yeah, I think that it's like ultimately just like figuring out what I think is cool and exciting and then putting that out there. And if people respond to it, that's great. And if not, then that's okay too. And that, you could just move on to the next list. I mean, especially at work and stuff, that's what we always say. Like if we can't do something, it's not the end of the world. We'll just keep going. We're going to have more ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And plus you never know until you try it and then you're like, oh, that was cool. Let's do it again. Or like, okay, well, that's fine. We move on. Like you said, there's no shortage of ideas. How do you personally, like when you're putting so much into, the events that you're doing either at, Brain Dead, where it's like, oh my gosh, we got this, big thing coming up. And, once the event is complete and it's either successful or unsuccessful, what do you actually do to sort of decompress and like remove your head from that planning phase?
I go to Wii Spa a lot. Which is the Korean spa in Koreatown.
Absolutely. Legendary.
Yeah. Legendary spot. Yeah. I try to go there at least once a month. I've budgeted to make sure that it happens. And so it is like a big, part of the puzzle maybe for this stuff. And I'll like knock out like, like 8 hours there or something like that, like 7-8 hours.
Okay.
And then, also, yeah, I don't know, just like do things like that aren't, events or like, like just kind of like go hang out with friends. Actually, writing music helps out a lot for me.
Okay.
Like that's like definitely my big outlet. Like I'll just go home and like pick up a guitar, watch TV, and just like try to write something for a couple hours. Yeah, I mean that's the majority of things I do.
Right.
Or cook. Yeah, I like to cook.
Sure. Just do things that still are stimulating, but are stimulating maybe a different side of your brain.
Yeah, and you're able to successfully, well, I mean, sometimes not with writing songs, but if you feel like you write something cool, you're like, oh, okay, that's an achievement for today. Or if you cook something really good, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I knocked that one out. Great.
Sure.
Easier ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Two last things I want to hit on was with the object of affection stuff, it's the band seems to exist in this cool space where you guys put a lot into it creatively, and you play shows and do stuff when you are able to, but it seems very manageable. Is that something that is just based off of like you guys deliberately choosing to be like, for lack of a better term, like scarce, where it's like, all right, we're not going to, spend whatever 250 days on the road. We're not going to be creatures and pound ourselves into the ground. Or is that just a function of like, hey, this is where we're at in our lives and we enjoy the band, we enjoy being creative, but we don't need to do that?
I think it's both, like I'm definitely not 19 anymore. And I have like a lot of commitments, like we've been talking about, that like would make it impossible for me to, go on the road for months.
Yep.
But, also like, it could be something that where it's like, yeah, I spent like, I don't know, like 6 to 8 years just touring hard. And, I don't know. Like, I'm also just kind of seeing it where like, especially with, with a band like Object, I'm like, I don't know if we need to play, like wherever, like the middle of, I don't know if we need to spend like weeks in the middle of the country, because I don't know if people are really going to respond to it and enjoy it. But, like, I'm not to say that we won't get there at some point. That'd be great. But, at least for the moment, like we're happy with doing what we're doing. We're actually going on our first tour at the end of the month with Glitterer. So that should be really interesting and cool. We're going to do like 10 days out.
Nice.
And I think we're going to learn a lot to see if it it kind of makes sense for us to, do something similar like that again.
Right. Yeah. It's like you're doing it smart where you're dipping your toe in the water and being like, okay, cool. Like we can handle a little more of this, or like maybe let's handle, 5 dates instead of 10 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know that we're going to get out to the East Coast once the record's out, but yeah, it's kind of more like, are we going to do 2 weeks or are we going to do a week? So we'll see. And also obviously our schedules all depend. I'm not the only one that's busy in the band.
Sure.
Everybody is. So yeah. But nonetheless, yeah, it's a really, really great outlet, and I love playing in the band.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. And I love that bands like you guys can exist in this world of just being like, hey, we can work with the record label. We can, put our stuff out there. We can play a few shows, but we don't need to, drown ourselves in like the music industry trappings of, the only way you can get yourself known is by doing this. It's like, there's the internet, we're fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'm really proud of the record. Once it comes out, hopefully people like it as much as we do. And but if not, at the same thing, like we were talking about earlier, it's like all good. Like there's always more songs. So
right.
It's going to be okay.
Right. If you don't like this record, maybe you like the next one, or just don't check us out. Find out another band,
Yeah. There's so many bands. There's many bands.
There are. Yeah. I wanted to hit on Brain Dead Studios because I know that, would you consider that like your quote unquote full-time job as far as programming and all that sort of stuff?
It is, yeah. I'm the events coordinator and talent booker for Brain Dead.
Right. And so when you stepped into that, I'm sure it was exciting because you got to do a lot of different things that pulled on your skill sets from, putting on shows and doing all of that sort of stuff, but you were able to operate in such a different environment. I guess kind of on that Sound and Fury question I asked you, what surprised you when you first, stepped into doing this with Brain Dead?
Brain Dead. Yeah. I mean, I love working for the company. It's like every day there's something different, especially like working in the office. Like obviously that's my title, like booking and taking care of the events, but there's always something else going on. Even tomorrow I'm doing a pop-up at the theater for burgers and stuff like that. There's like always something happening, but I'd say like the big difference is how interesting it is, like, when we've been fortunate enough to work it with like some of the biggest artists going right now. And it is just like so interesting how similar it is really to like, booking like a hardcore show or like a DIY show. It's really just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. Like we're down. It's all good. And then, you're just hanging out with whomever, but they're all just trying to like, play a good gig and do something fun and do something different, really. Like that's what I found, like with working with a lot of people, is like they're kind of tired of just like the day in day out grind, and they want to do something weird and different. And that's what like ultimately we try to do with the brand, and kind of like give people, like if a huge musician wants to play video games for 2 hours for his fans, like we got space for it. If they want to do like a weird cover set, where they only play Weezer songs, like we did that too. And so it just depends. Yeah. Like I think that, I don't even know where I'm going. I'm kind of rambling, but yeah, I mean, I think that, I guess just like how similar things are, really. I mean, to me, it wasn't like this scary jump. It was like, oh, cool. Like, we're going to like bring this thing up to a different scale and work with like incredible artists. So I'm really thankful for it.
Yeah, no, excuse me. It is exciting when you can have a space that can be so versatile, and you can just basically do, like when someone comes up with a crazy idea, you're just like, yeah, well, we got the space and we can try it, and we'll know if it's successful or unsuccessful. And if we have fun, then that's all that really matters, and obviously some, subset of the community enjoys it. So like, it's cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like a lot of the stuff we couldn't be able to do if there wasn't an audience who would be down to go to it. So
right.
In that respect, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Well, Madison, thank you very much for hanging out, doing this, and doing all the fun events, Mr. Vibe Curator. I'm just joking, but regardless, I appreciate the work you do. So thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course, dude. Yeah, it was great talking and hanging out. Looking forward to seeing you again.
There you have it. That was Madison Woodward, and you need to check out his band, Object of Affection. Like, I don't think we really drilled on that point too much, but yeah, his band just released a new record on Profound Lore, and I love what they do. And you also obviously need to check out the Sound and Fury lineup when that gets dropped. It's probably going to happen like the next 2 weeks or something like that. But I'm excited to see what they have cooking and up their sleeve. I know a few things, but of course I'm not going to tell you anything because that is my job. But what I can do is tell you who is on the particular episode next week. This is the start of our LDB Fest live coverage. When I say live coverage, I did live podcasts at that awesome fest in Louisville, Kentucky. And the first one, we're coming out swinging. I actually have a brother and brother sibling podcast. They're two separate recordings I did. But I got Mr. Brian Garris, who has, made, this is his third appearance, I think, on this podcast. But he's the vocalist of Knocked Loose. And then I had his little brother, Trey Garris, who plays in X Weapon X, and he's just also, he played in Dare, played in a bunch of bands. But I had discussions with both of them, and Trey, it was really cool because he was like, I haven't done anything like this before. He's done one or two podcasts, but he was a little bit nervous, but we made it happen. It was super fun, and that is what I'm bringing to you next week. Live podcast from LDB Fest. So excited about that. Anyways, until then, please be safe, everybody.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
America loves its founding fathers, but that's a tough act to follow as a founding son. I'm Bob Crawford. Join me, Patrick Warburton, and Nick Offerman as we bring the sixth president to life.
Was there ever witnessed such a barefaced corruption in any country before?
Let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
Listen to Founding Son, a Curiosity podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Horrifying monsters, dangerous gods and heroes, and incredible underrepresented women. From the truth about Medusa, she never actually hurt anyone, to the horrors of Theseus, he was basically a serial predator. I am Liv Albert, and Let's Talk About Myths, Baby is the Greek and Roman mythology podcast here with all the dirty details and then some. Listen to Let's Talk About Myths, Baby on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.